Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping into a really thought-provoking area. We're looking at some sources that offer this fascinating, maybe even kind of unsettling view on celebrity inversion, the pawns of the game. These documents basically suggest that, the celebrities we see everywhere, they aren't just entertainers, no, they're described, in these sources anyway, as pawns. Pawns who are enacting these public rituals. Rituals with a much deeper sort of hidden meaning, apparently.
That's exactly right. And our task, really, for this deep dive is to try and unpack how these sources claim celebrities act as instruments of inversion.
Yeah.
We need to explore how they're supposedly designed to reinforce what's called a cypher, like a hidden code or language, and normalize great deceptions, big falsehoods presented as if they're true. Understanding these concepts, at least as the sources lay them out, is pretty crucial, I think, for grasping the picture they're trying to paint for you.
Okay, right. So let's get into this core idea, inversion. According to these documents, the main job of these celebrity pawns is to invert things, to turn them upside down. And they focus heavily on the inversion of gender. They call it profane androgyny. The sources claim there's this ultimate goal, part of a great cycle, which is to create a perfected androgynous monarch, a kind of sacred fusion.
And what's really interesting, or what the sources find interesting, is how they suggest the elites use this as above, so below idea. The concept that big spiritual stuff is mirrored in everyday human actions. Well, they supposedly force their pawns to act out a, let's say, profane social version of that sacred androgynous state. The key point the sources seem to be making is that this isn't accidental. It's presented as a deliberate hijacking, a symbolic takeover aimed at reshaping basic human identity.
Right, hijacking. And digging deeper into this gender inversion theme, the sources talk about the alpha female. They describe this figure as an avatar of conflict, apparently created through what they call profane ideologies like modern feminism, the purpose stated in these documents, to create animosity between the sexes and block any true harmonious union. These are definitely strong claims about the intent behind certain social movements, just to be clear.
And if you connect that back to the wider narrative in these sources, they contrast the alpha female with the beta male. He's depicted as sort of a weakened, confused hybrid. This figure is supposedly pushed by a social climate that, discourages traditional masculine alpha virtues. The result, according to the sources, is compliant, easily managed pawns. Pawns who lack that foundational rock, which seems to mean losing a sense of fundamental masculine purpose and stability.
Okay, so what's the takeaway for us, according to these sources? They essentially present this whole thing, this engineered gender war, as the elite's #1 social weapon, keeping people busy, fighting each other, so they're, blind to the true gaming. It's a really compelling, maybe unsettling argument about how these dynamics are supposedly used to distract you from what the sources see as the real agenda. But the inversion idea doesn't just stop with gender, does it? The sources also suggest the sacred act of creation is also inverted through these celebrity rituals.
Yeah, and that leads us to the whole moon bump thing. The sources describe this as a literal and profane ritual. Fake pregnancies, basically. The celebrity's body supposedly becomes a microcosm of the pregnant earth, a symbol. It's framed as a walking prophecy, announcing to everyone that the world is, like, gravid with the dormant monarch, which they equate with the moon, and that the delivery, the so-called Great Reset, is coming soon. The deeper claim here, reading between the lines of the sources, seems to be about publicly showing symbolic control over creation itself, sort of preempting a natural birth with their own orchestrated societal change.
Yeah. Okay. And this manipulation of creation goes even further, right? The sources bring up the common use of surrogacy among celebrities. They frame this as showing the elite's core philosophy. Imitate, but do not duplicate.
Exactly. And what's just as fascinating, or maybe disturbing depending on your view, is the claim that they want the result, the child, of this new era, but they want to skip the true divine birth, which the sources link to the sacred union. So their technological and social rituals around surrogacy, they're presented as this profane attempt to control the very process of creation, almost like trying to steal the divine child, as they put it, and raise it in their own image.
And they actually give a specific example in the sources, the staged birth of the child, the prince, Harry, and his media pawn wife. According to these documents, that whole event was meant as a kind of global announcement, an announcement of their intent to create the heir to the New World Order through their own profane surrogate means. That's quite a specific and bold interpretation presented there.
So wrapping this up, the picture these sources paint is one where, through these rituals of inversion, celebrity pawns are shown serving hidden masters. They're used to confuse what the sources call the sacred cipher, that underlying symbolic language. And they distract everyone with social conflict while constantly sort of prophesying a profane version of the very reset they're supposedly helping to make happen.
Makes you think, doesn't it? What stands out to you listening to this about the idea that maybe the most visible people around us might be performing some kind of hidden pantomime? A performance that, according to these sources, foretells a really profound societal reset, something to mull over.